Let's give this a go. Hey, everyone. I'm putting together our video to kick off our summer session of 409. This is 2021 summer session 3. It actually started yesterday. I'm recording this on Tuesday. I was not able to do it yesterday because, as I mentioned in the email, my Wi-Fi is toast at home at the moment. And I can barely even load a single web page, let alone an entire video. So I had to come into the office and do this and some other things. So I'm going to try to just sort of chat about the class and what you're going to be sort of encountering and expecting, or sort of some of the expectations over the next 5 weeks that will be together online. I've got my syllabus on my phone here. Not able to print right now either. I'm sort of in between offices because we're doing the move back to campus thing, but I created my comfy home office where all my stuff is. So I'm kind of in limbo a little bit here for the next little bit. Anyway, we are now in our first week of COM 409, the rhetorical tradition. And I just wanted to chat about the class, how it's going to kind of run, and what you should be kind of thinking and expecting and so on. So first thing is, my name is Donovan Conley. I'm associate professor in communication studies. I think I'm the most senior person in the department at this point. I've been around for a while, and I've been teaching this class for quite a while. It's evolved over the years, but this is a pretty standard class for our department. It's an upper division required class in rhetoric, where you're going to get some history and, more importantly, some theory and concepts that really kind of get to the heart of this question of what is rhetoric, right? So hopefully at the end of the next 5 weeks, you'll have a much stronger handle on that. What is this rhetoric business, and at least ways of coming at that question. Things are going to move quickly, so I just want to kind of alert you to, what's going to be happening here. So the syllabus is posted right at the top of the home page, first unit kind of thing. Obviously, print it off, go through it pretty closely, pay attention to deadlines, pay attention to the content and the readings and all that. The class is organized around 3 modules, and each of the modules represent a kind of, historical phase or period of the rhetorical tradition. And there's 2 periods that are most important. There's the ancient, classical Greek and Roman context, and then there's the contemporary 20th century context, okay? And so we're going to spend 2 weeks on each of those time periods, and then we're going to spend just 1 week on basically in the in-between period, but focusing mostly on the kind of late Renaissance and early modern period, where things started to kind of really shift and change in ways that are still relevant today. So that's it, right? So we're going to march through, over 2,000 years of human social history in 5 weeks. So the first thing that I'm going to stress, and I actually mentioned this in the email yesterday, is that this class, I'm trying my very best to make it not too onerous in terms of the assignments. There's just 2 tests and 3 short papers. That's it. So 5 assignments in 5 weeks. Nothing too terribly, elaborate or crazy there. I think the real challenge of the class is just keeping abreast. So don't know what else you guys got going on in your lives, whether it's work or travel or whatever, but there's one thing that you need to be able to kind of embrace to do well in this class, is the fact there's a fair amount of content, there's a fair amount of material, fair amount of reading. Just looking at this week's readings, there's 4 different kind of topics for this week. There's orientation, there's Rhetorics Origins, and sophistry, and then there's even Plato as well. So we're doing 2 of the major models of rhetoric that I talk about just this week alone, and each of those has readings attached to it. I'm sorry to say there's really nothing I can do about this. These are the kind of minimal things that we need to cover. These are the minimal readings that we can be doing to cover these topics and themes. And I'm trying my very best to weed out any excess readings, but this is what we more or less must take care of. So the main thing that I want to stress for everyone's success in this class, because I want everyone to succeed, I want everyone to pass, to do well, to do better than they hoped. The main thing is to be organized and to make sure you're keeping up with the readings, okay? The book that we are using in this class is by James Herrick. It's the 6th edition of, I can't remember the title, but it's a nice textbook that I've used in this class a number of times. And then I bring in supplemental things, right? And so there's always a Herrick kind of selection for whatever major theme or topic. And then there's a lecture video that I create just like this, where I'm talking essentially a kind of shortened version of what I might do in a given class period. That's meant to, elaborate on what you've read in the chapter and illuminate certain ideas. I really try to focus on important concepts. Apart from those kind of core things, Herrick and the videos, I also include things like some lecture notes, just little kind of bullet point kind of details that are useful. A lot of that is overlap with Herrick. Sometimes I'll bring in like outside things that I've discovered on the internet, like if it's a video or a reading or just something that's meant to be helpful to kind of illuminate and illustrate certain things. All right, so each week, please just follow through the syllabus, right? So week 1, February 12 through 18, there's a series of readings and topics. My expectation is that you'll be going through and doing all of those readings in that week, okay? It's a whole week. When you do them is not so crucial. It's just important that you get it done. So I see this being probably about, 3 or 4 hours worth of reading. But that's for the whole week, So it should equal more or less the work that you would be doing in 15 weeks. Probably even less, but crammed into 5, it's a lot. So that's the main kind of initial thing is please, please, please stay up with the reading. Don't fall behind. Jot notes down and questions if you're going through stuff and you don't understand it, like circle things, make a note. I have no idea what that was about. I got to ask Dr. Conley about that. All right. So that's the next point is by all means, please do reach out. And if you have any questions or you feel kind of lost or just uncertain about anything, I'm available through email, through phone chats, through Zoom calls, through the chat function in Canvas, through my YouTube page if you wanted to comment on the videos there. I mean, however you feel like you want to reach out, whatever's easiest or most comfortable, I'm happy to chat. If you talk to students who have taken this class in previous semesters, hopefully they would tell you that when they did reach out to me, I tried very hard to be helpful and understanding of where you're at, because I know that we're all in different places, maybe even physically, geographically, but also in terms of like our preparedness and our feeling of confidence and comfort with the material. I'm here to help, and I hope you reach out if you need some. So let's see here. The assignments, as I mentioned, just 2 tests and 3 concept papers, critical concept papers. So the tests are a combination of multiple choice and written response. There's 25 multiple choice questions, and then you get asked to write a number of written responses, where the focus there is on your kind of handle and grasp of the concepts, right? So those are important parts of it. The papers are I will give you a little prompt and ask you to be kind of engaging some of the concepts that we've been working through, some of the big questions and challenges that rhetoricians have struggled with. And the papers are, I think all of them, maybe 2 out of 3 are dealing with films. And they're usually pretty fun. That's the idea, right? Watch something where you can kind of talk about the concepts playing out and giving you something concrete to work with. How am I doing on time here? 9, okay. So that's it. I'll start posting the assignments. I just got to tweak a few things here and there, deadlines and maybe some of the parameters. So to the student who requested that, I think, was it James? We'll do that right away as soon as I can. Thank you. I got you. I know there's only 2 weeks to get ready for the first one. So I'll get those things up and you can sort of see where we're going here. So hopefully you'll kind of get the sense of the flow of the class. What I've tried to do is have the Canvas page kind of reflect what's on the syllabus here, right? And so it'll say in the syllabus there's a Herrick reading, and then it maybe says like Rhetorics Origins and Sophistry, there's a reading by Hannah Arendt, right? And so the public and the private realm. Obviously, that's not in Herrick, so then you can expect to find it in the Canvas page, and it should be like the first reading that you find in that module for the Greek and Roman context, right? And so it shouldn't be too difficult to kind of draw lines back and forth between the syllabus and what's listed in Canvas. Obviously, if you're struggling to find anything or if links aren't working or whatever, always reach out, let me know. Little tap on the shoulder. Hey, Dr. Conley, I can't seem to find that reading. Sometimes things disappear. I accidentally hit a button or forget to hit another button. There's a lot of little technical things. But I've been doing this class now for a while, and it's more or less the same, and so it should all be there and in good order. So this week is Rhetorics Origins and Sophistry, and we're going to be looking at the Sophists and Plato. And the other thing that you'll be doing first, hopefully right after you watch this intro video, go through the syllabus, the next video that you want to look at is the one on the Rhetoric's the four main models of rhetoric. That's the kind of like the video where I talk about the framing of the class, right? And so we're dealing with like over 2,000 years of human social history, and we got this like hyper-technical body of knowledge, and it's just an insane amount of material to work through. So the way that I kind of give some structure and shape to all this material is by talking about four major traditions of rhetoric. And that's an important video because it's really going to affect everything else that we do in this class and how we talk about things. So please watch that video, and I think there's also some notes that go with it. And if you have any questions, please reach out. But basically, the four main models are these major kind of traditions that you can talk about within rhetoric. I don't see rhetoric as one thing. I see it as potentially at least one of four things, possibly a combination. So these four traditions begin with ancient figures who kind of spearheaded a certain way of thinking about rhetoric. And so the first one that we're going to look at is Gorgianic or Sophistic. So the Sophists were like a group of early educators in rhetoric. And they developed a certain kind of reputation as being kind of slick and very clever and artful, and maybe a little bit not so concerned about truth and ethics and so on. And so that represents a model or a tradition, and we're going to go with Gorgias, the figure of Gorgias, as the kind of the person that represents that tradition. From there, we're going to look at Plato and Plato's kind of response to the Sophists. Plato really struggled with what the Sophists were doing, and their kind of implications on the culture and on democracy and all that kind of stuff. So the Plato is the second major tradition, the second figure. And then Plato's student, Aristotle, gives us our third model, because he comes along, and even though he looked up to Plato and took a lot of Plato's ideas, he really went in a different direction. So that's our third model. And then a contemporary of Aristotle's was Socrates, not Socrates, the mentor for Plato, Socrates with an I, who was a very well-known and well-respected teacher, and writer of speeches, and he gives us our fourth tradition, which also happens to be the tradition of Cicero, who comes a couple hundred years after Isocrates. All right, so four kind of Greek figures representing four different traditions of rhetoric. And when I talk about rhetoric, I'm thinking mostly about something that we do, right? And so something that humans do together socially. It's a practice. It's something that we engage in. Series of behaviors or actions that we take using language, using symbols, using communication, and where we're trying to do something, achieve some outcome, right? Broadly speaking, that's how I think about rhetoric. What we're looking at in this class are theories about how to do the thing that we're talking about, right? So it's a social practice and it's a political practice. It's something that we do together. We try to move each other. We try to convince each other. We try to bring each other into our ways of seeing and doing things, or we try to achieve certain kinds of results or outcomes or changes and get people involved in that process along the way. The question is how do we do it? So the four traditions are kind of approaches to the business of how we attempt to achieve certain outcomes using communication. That's probably as simply as I can put it, okay? So when I'm thinking about rhetoric, I'm always thinking about stuff that's happening out there in the world and how we conduct ourselves together in public, togetherness, collective, kind of that sphere of action where we're out as citizens, as members of a community. We might not know each other. In fact, we probably don't. How do we deal with each other? How do we try to convince and persuade and influence and all that stuff, all right? And then the theories are the things that people like myself, rhetoricians, the students of or the scholars of the practice. So if you're engaging in a speech, you're a rhetor. You're speaking, you're engaging in the practice of rhetoric. If you're studying someone else's, if you're studying an Obama speech, then you're being a rhetorician. You're trying to analyze and understand it, right? Now, I could step back and say, even when we're being rhetoricians and we're publishing things, we're also being rhetors because we're trying to influence future practice, but we don't need to get too much into all that kind of stuff. But we can think about kind of the study of rhetoric and the practice of it out there in the world. And for me, first and foremost, the practices, the things that we're doing out there, how we're engaging each other on the social media platforms, how it is that we are attempting to influence education or influence politics or influence the representations in culture and media and